Welcome to the Startup Grind.
So our featured speaker tonight is the woman behind Cahoots. If you don't know what Cahoots is, I don't know what to tell you at this point. You are here. This is Cahoots. So Cahoots is a space where entrepreneurs and business owners, small business owners, can come together to be able to have the synergies that they need to move forward in their business and to have access to the things that they need that might otherwise be difficult to attain in their earliest stages. But a co-working space, especially one like Cahoots, is much, much more than that as well. It's not defined by the gorgeous space and the beautiful design, which is beautiful here. There's a magic to it that takes a strategy and takes someone with a lot of heart behind it to create. And so I'm going to have you join me, get up on your feet, and join me in welcoming Jenny Poon, who is the founder of Cahoots. Thank you, Joy. All right. Sad to see you go for a minute here.
Bye, baby.
It's okay. We'll give her back. I promise. All right, so Jenny, thank you for hosting us tonight, first of all.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. So we like to start with a little bit about what it is that created you to be the person that created this, okay? So we're gonna go back in time a little bit and start with Jenny 1.0. So tell us a little bit about the family and the culture that you grew up in, or kind of any of those early years.
Oh man, so if you've heard of the Tiger Mom concept, that is pretty much what I grew up in. So I come from a refugee family. My grandparents escaped China to move to Vietnam during the Japanese Wars, and then my parents escaped Vietnam during the Vietnam Wars, and we're incredibly lucky to have had a very generous family in Minneapolis sponsor them to come to Minneapolis. So my parents, they didn't know each other, or well, they knew each other in Vietnam, but they didn't escape with each other. They, I don't know if you've probably heard the stories of the boat people in Vietnam. So one day my dad was told when he got home from school that their family had sold their entire tea business and taken all of the money to pay for a seat on a boat for him to escape the country. And he was the youngest of 9 children, so he was the easiest one to get away, and young enough that if he was caught and had to go back to the country, he wouldn't have to serve in the military. And so he packed a little luggage and jumped on a boat and went off into the middle of the ocean. My mom, on the other hand, was not as lucky. She didn't come from a wealthy family. She was adopted in Vietnam and was incredibly social and crafty and a good hustler. And so she every day would go to another city in Vietnam and buy yesterday's bread at 50% off and come back to the city and sell it at today's price and make that money and use it for her to go out and like play and hang out with her friends. And she had tons of friends that she always tells me about. So she left the country by having a friend who had extra seats on a boat and said that if you help me sell these seats, then you could eventually get on the boat if you oversold the seats. So she took it on upon herself knowing that if she sold 15 seats at X price, $5 above the actual rate of the seat, that she would be able to pay her way out of the country. And so that's what she did. She filled that boat with her friends and escaped the country, and they both were basically floating in the middle of the ocean before they were picked up by the Coast Guard and sent to refugee camps, both to different countries. My dad went to Malaysia and my mom went to the Philippines, and they routed letters to each other because they were dating at the time. They routed letters to each other, and they had to send the letters to Australia, who then forwarded, because they had cousins in Australia, who then forwarded it to Vietnam and then forwarded back out to the different refugee camps that they were both at. So my dad eventually received sponsorship in Minneapolis from a very generous family, like I was saying, and they were also entrepreneurs. And so he grew up in a family, they adopted him. He grew up in a family of the first publishing company for special needs kids. And he kind of learned about their company, which is part of how they then created a restaurant. So with the support of my now grandparents who sponsored my parents to come, they were able to open a restaurant which is still around today, 30 years later. And so that's kind of what I grew up in. My mom and my dad grew up in an environment of like just running to save their lives. And like most parents and grandparents, they tell the story of what it was like in their days. And so I grew up in an environment where, we were not, we were probably like lower middle class, but I didn't really feel it. They spent all of their time working at the restaurant. I grew up in the restaurant. Every single day after school, I would go to the restaurant.
Did you work there?
I did. I cut carrots, and I cut onions, and I served tables, and I bussed tables. It was pretty much the only job I had up until college. And I remember in college, the restaurant is on the university campus, and I remember going to school and then working lunch shift, and then going to school and coming back and working the dinner shift. So restaurants were all I knew, but I remember thinking growing up, why would somebody do that? Like, why would somebody choose to work that many hours? Why would somebody choose to work 7 days out of the week, every single day of the year, and come home with burns on their arms because they were working the deep fryer? And I didn't realize until now that they do that because that is one part what they were given, the opportunities that they were given, but also because that is a skill and a passion that you have. And so it took me a really long time. It's kind of like when you have a kid and you're like, oh my God, I didn't realize how much of a pain in the ass I was when I was younger, and I'm so sorry. But now I have a business of my own, and I realize really it is, from everybody else's perspective, it probably looks like an incredibly hard job, and all of the things that we've accomplished is probably incredible from outsiders' perspective, but when you're inside of it, all you see is, I really want to do this. I really want to make this happen. And it's the only thing that makes sense right now. And so that's kind of what I grew up with and what I learned from my parents.
What did you study in college? What were your early interests?
College is a funny story.
Let's do it.
So I studied journalism and I studied global studies, so I dual majored, and I originally applied for the College of Liberal Arts because I wanted to study graphic design, and then I realized, well, after I was accepted, that graphic design isn't in that school at all. Oh, no. And so I went to the next closest thing, which was marketing, which was in the School of Journalism, and then I fell into journalism. Well, then I finished all of the classes that I thought I was supposed to finish. And I went back and went to graphic design, and I studied graphic design, and then I walked, and I thought I got my fake degree that they give you, and then I got a job, and I moved out of state, and then I was working for 3 months, and then 3 months later I get a letter from my school that says, you didn't actually graduate, you're still missing courses, why haven't you enrolled in the next semester?
Wow, that's rough.
So then 10 years later, after I was working as an art director at a publication, and then 10 years later, Cahoots was launched, and it was at a sustainable point. And I decided, because I have a tiger mom who always values education, she kept telling me, you have to finish your degree. You studied for so many years, and you got a double degree, and you still haven't finished it. You have to go back and finish it. What are you worth if you don't finish your school? And so I went back after 10 years, and I went and finished this class, which was kind of ridiculous. It was a Chinese class, and I'm Chinese. And I studied in China for a year. Anyway, so I finished the class, and so in 2012, I finally got my degree.
Very good. Very good.
So,
and you learned Chinese, apparently, in the process,
yeah,
or something.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that works. So let's talk about your early career. So you mentioned you were an art director. What types of things did you do early on?
Right out of school, I got a job as an art director for a publication in California, and then that publication shut down, so I was dating my husband, boyfriend at the time. He was working out here at the Arizona Republic, and I came out here and visited, and there was a position for another magazine out here. So I interviewed and I got the job. And then I moved to the Arizona Republic a couple years later and became the art director for AZ magazine at the Arizona Republic. I'd freelanced all the way through there. And then in 2009, they had a series of layoffs, and I got laid off in the 2009 round of layoffs. And I decided to start my own company. Sorry, I'm on the verge of sneezing.
Okay.
So in 2009, I started my own company, Eco Studio. It was a design agency, and that's kind of where it all started.
So then that snowballed into what became Cahoots, it sounds like.
It is. So I started my own company. I was working from home. Odin, my husband, was also a reporter at the Arizona Republic, a sports reporter. And as a sports reporter, he worked from home. And so when I started off on my own, I worked from home. And we both drove each other nuts for a while. We worked side by side for a little bit, but his work schedule and my schedule was very different, and we just kind of drove each other nuts. After weeks of like never leaving the house and not knowing how to speak to like a normal human being, we decided that this isn't working anymore. I was also at a stage with my company that I was about to hire my first employee, which was a big deal. And I was already having a few interns, but they were coming to my house, and it was just getting really awkward because interns coming to your house and seeing like how you live is just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so I knew I needed to take that next step. I needed to find a new space. I needed to grow my company. I've always worked in a team environment. I've always had creative people around me, and I wasn't in that environment anymore. So I set out to kind of find those people that would inspire me to do really great work. And I ended up finding Matt Clower, who was one of our first members, and I gave him a call one day because a friend recommended I call him, and I said, hey, I have this idea. I have this crazy idea. I want to start the space where other people like me who are struggling with their business or don't know what that next step is, that we could be around people like us, and that we would be able to take that next step because other people would help us through it.
So as entrepreneurs, we're famous for the fact that, well, our passion comes because we're solving problems that we can relate with a lot of the times with things that we take on. So as you created this, what was the landscape of co-working like, around?
Oh, I didn't even know co-working existed.
Yeah.
I thought I had the most brilliant idea ever. And then I opened this space and started Googling and found out, hey, there's a whole co-working movement out there. And I wasn't the first one. It actually has been around for 10 years before I actually started it. But Phoenix, like most Phoenix things, was very slow to catch on to things. So we were the first in Phoenix. We opened it, and at that time we were in the middle of the recession. It was 2010. And it was honestly just a silly little idea. I was like, okay, what if this could work? And met with Matt Clower, and we said, let's do it. Let's see if this works. We found a space that was about 2,000 square feet, which is, this space plus a little bit of that space, and threw a big party. I sent it to a few of my friends, expecting maybe 50 people would show up. He sent it to a few of his friends. We talked to a couple people, asked them to share it, and then all of a sudden there was 350 people at this grand opening, and we were on Roosevelt and 7th Street.
I like that your initial thought was to throw a big party. That's how you call the entrepreneurs in, apparently, huh?
Yeah.
I like it. Good. So you were there for a little while, and then things moved forward, and you moved into a bigger space. And what's the journey been like, kind of navigating the ups and downs of owning a business and making sure that you have the right amount of everything at the right time?
Yeah, it was challenging. There was definitely a lot of challenges. We ran into a lot of bad partners. In the very beginning, we partnered with our landlord, who was, at that time, just really desperate, right? Like, he had 2 mortgages for these really big buildings and really just wanted somebody to help activate it and fill the space, and thought that we were the answer for it. And we kind of were, but we didn't move as fast as he was expecting. And so he kind of just went about it very differently than we would have expected, and kind of tried to raise our rent even though we'd only been in there for a few months. And it just got really weird. And so we knew we had to move, but we were also running out of space there. So we got to a point where we were looking for the next space. We found the next space. We signed the lease on the next space. He found out that we signed this lease, and then basically booted us. Said you had a few weeks to get out of the space. And so very quickly we like at that point, I think we were maybe 50 members at that point, 25 to 50, wasn't super big. And we told our members what was happening, and it was crazy. He emailed all of our members and said, stop paying Cahoots, pay me instead. You know, like, Cahoots is gonna leave, but you know what, a co-working space is still gonna be here. And at that point, it was kind of a make or break moment, because who can say no, as a small business, who can say no to free rent and a place that already has built legs for it, right? And I remember thinking, and fortunately Mon Orchid, who was downtown, said we could be housed out of that space. And I remember thinking, we're done for. There's no way we can sustain this. And our 50 members all moved with us. He then offered a year's free rent, and they all continued to move with us into a smaller space, into like a super dark space. We were in this beautiful, bright space, and then we moved into this tiny dungeon, and everybody moved with us.
So what is it, do you think? I mean, because I've seen other situations where people will pop up a space and they think that just opening the doors and putting a price tag on the space is what makes it happen. How do you quantify or what is it that makes that difference in what makes a co-working space have that connection?
Everyone asks us what our secret sauce is, and it's not really a secret. It's really about, all of our entire team is really about, they're hired to grow community. Their role is to understand what our members need and connect them to the resources that they need. And on the flip side, our members need to know that our culture is about transparency and authenticity, so they need to know that they can share these things, right? It is really scary if the next month you have zero income coming in. What do you do next? You're in the stage of feast or famine. What do you do next? And it's you ask our community managers, you reach out to people in our space. And I remember a prime example of this. I think Robin is in our space. We had a member who said, I don't know if I can make it another month. You know, I've been chasing business for so long, but like nothing is coming in, and I have all of these expenses rolling in, and I don't know what to do. And he just shares this, like happened to share this with Robin, and she's like, I have a ton of work for you. Here, take all of this work. I don't want to do this work. And so then that like spurred the next big movement for him, and now he's partnering with new organizations, he's running new projects. You know, it's just these little hurdles for entrepreneurs. They say entrepreneurs fail in the first 3 years. It's because of these little hurdles, and you get to a point where you think this is the end of your story, but it's not the end of your story. It's just this little hill you got to jump over. And so that's kind of what we're here for. It's as long as you're open with what your challenges are, everyone here wants to help you solve it.
So that's interesting. It sounds like, in a way, you change what failure feels like for entrepreneurs to be something that is different than what they're going to think it's going to be.
Yeah, and I like to look back and think that we've lived a very adventurous life. Entrepreneurship isn't a Scantron test. There's no right or wrong path in how you take it. I think about this a lot in our current political situation. There's no honestly right or wrong way in where we're going to go. We just need to test and vet the different solutions that we have and move forward from there. And that's what entrepreneurship is. I think we run into all of these different kinds of problems. And I look back, I never would have even imagined that we would be here. Owning a building, a 14,000 square foot building. The last space we moved into, everyone asked, what's our next thing? And I said, I'm done, that's it. There's no more. This is where Cahoots' final home is. And today we're in this 14,000 square foot home, which is 3 times the size of what we were in before. And I can't even, that journey even coming here was such a crazy journey. But again, I think this isn't the end of our story either. We still have, I'm still young. I think I'm still young. We still have a good amount of time to do more work here. And I feel like that's the entrepreneurial journey, right? We're always going to run into different hurdles, and it depends on what we do with it then. It's not the end of our story.
You know, it's funny, I've worked, before I was at ASU, I was a growth advisor, and I worked with kind of the mid-market companies, 5 to 250 million, and it's funny because in that zone, there's a very strong culture that partnerships in business are discouraged because they just complicate things, and that it's kind of do it on your own. But yet, when we come to the startup side of things, entrepreneurship is a team sport, and it's about being able to partner and stuff. So what are your perspectives now with everything you've gone through? Do you have any advice for those that are playing the team sport on how to pick a partner, how to be a good partner, how to arrange things so that you have the best potential outcome with a partner? Like, what are your thoughts on that after everything you've gone through in that area?
Oh man, I've gone through so many different good and bad partners, and I look back and I think, Robin is smiling at me right now because Robin started with us at Cahoots, and I remember trying to work with her, and we've gone through lots of different kinds of partnerships, and she is honestly one of the best partners I've ever had, and it's because we come from a space of generosity and honesty, right? Like, I think those are the key components to any kind of good partnership. There are times where I take the lead on things, there are times when she takes the lead on things, and we both lean on each other. There are times where we realize we can't work together on this project, and that's okay, right? And I think being able to say that and say that this isn't the right thing, but I still love and trust you is what a true partnership is. There are people, I've learned to trust my gut a lot more, where you run into people who, from the get-go, you know, there's a red flag. There is an issue here. And it's not like you're evil, it's just my communication style and the way I work is very different from yours, and we can never force that to happen. I wish a lot of times I'd listened to that sooner, because I've wasted a lot of time on people that just aren't the right fit. And that's okay.
This sounds like good dating advice, too.
Yeah.
Good. All right. So talk to us about where Cahoots is at today and what you see for the future here.
Oh, wow. Cahoots. It's our little baby, right? So it's our community baby. Cahoots is now at a point where we've found a good community. We're at 250 members. We're looking to grow to 1,000 entrepreneurs in the 5-year span, in the next 5 years. We're looking to host educational events every single day based on what our community needs. A big goal of ours, everyone asks me, are we gonna open a Cahoots in a different city? Are we gonna open a Cahoots in Tempe, in Scottsdale, in Mesa, in Glendale, wherever? And my answer has always been no, because we've spent so much time in building this that I don't know if I have the energy to build it in another city. But here's the key of what we're doing next. We're not growing another Cahoots in another city, because what we've built here is very Phoenix-based. It's built on our love for Phoenix, and everyone in our leadership group loves Phoenix, and it's gonna be hard to pick that up and say, this is gonna work in another city, because it's not. Every city is different, every community is different. So what we're trying to do now in the future is build the model of building communities in other industries that are needed. So the next step, and if you're available tomorrow, we're launching our next community, which is Perch, and the idea is a community focused on health tech innovators. So that's where the future for Cahoots is. We specialize in building community, and there's no way you can replicate this community in anywhere else. But what we can do is we can find communities that are already at that verge of like explosion and propel it forward. And so what we're seeing is health tech is a huge industry that needs innovation. And what we're gonna do is go in and find those people who believe in the future of health technology and innovating healthcare, and bring those talented knowledge workers and pair them, which is what we have here, pair them with a lot of those people who are in healthcare, and that's where innovation happens, right? Where these two different industries collide. And so we'll gather the people who are in leadership roles, stakeholders in healthcare, and mash them together with these people who are incredibly talented, which is what we've been doing here for a long time, and then eventually, hopefully, that'll become an actual space. But build a community first. We don't believe in the, you build a space and they will come. Like, let's find where there's an industry in need, and we come and we help be the little spark plug.
I like it. I feel like you might have like a thing for birds or something. Am I noticing something here? I mean,
I've been trying to avoid that.
What's the story behind the owl and now the perch? I mean, what's going on here?
Okay, so it originally started with Hooters, which isn't a brand that I want to relate to, but it's Cahoots. And so all of a sudden when we launched it, people just kept dropping owls off at our door and like printing little owl pictures and sending me pictures of owls they've seen in their yard or baby owls that were just born. And it's just become a thing. We've just had to embrace it.
But wait, how did it go from Hooters to Cahoots? I think I missed that entire part there. What happened here?
I think it's the name, Cahoots and Hoots and.
Well, yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, we'll go with it. We'll go with it. Cahoots.
I don't know.
Perfect.
I've been avoiding it, but we can't.
Something to do with buffalo wings. That's all we know. Okay, got it. So is there anything else that you want to share before we play a little 20 question games, and then we will have time for audience questions. And so get those ready if you have any, my friends.
No, I don't have anything else.
Perfect. Well, then we are going to play a little game that helps us get to know Jenny just a little bit better. So 20 questions, rapid fire. You're just going to tell me the first thing that comes to your mind here.
Oh,
so.
no, I've had some drinks, so I'm not.
Oh, good. Even better. Cats or dogs? Easy.
Dogs.
Oh, okay. Beer or wine?
Wine.
Sushi or tacos?
Sushi.
Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Favorite app?
I love Dropbox.
Favorite operating system?
The
You're a designer.
Apple.
Apple. Okay, Mac for sure. Favorite holiday?
Gosh, I guess Christmas.
Favorite car?
I love my CX-5.
Favorite vacation spot?
Cabo.
Favorite book?
I love The Giver. It's my all-time favorite.
Favorite movie or TV show?
Okay, I don't know if this is my absolute favorite, but I really like The Emperor's New Groove.
Very
It's a
good.
little embarrassing,
It's all
but I
good.
think it's hilarious.
Favorite musician or artist?
I love the Beatles.
Your go-to karaoke song?
I don't do karaoke. I know I'm Asian and that's bad, but.
If you were forced, what would you pick?
Gosh. I guess I would pick the Beatles' Hello, Goodbye.
Okay. Take note, Odine. Make her practice. Anything you collect?
Photos?
Any unusual skills or talents?
I don't know, I haven't done this in a while, but I used to be able to walk across a room doing handstands.
Impressive.
I'm not going to do it, I'm in a dress.
Okay. I wasn't going to try and make it tonight, but I feel like I'm forming a checklist of things that we're going to have to do at some point. Your top strength in business?
I think I'm pretty good at strategy.
What profession, other than those that you have tried, would you like to attempt?
I really want to learn how to weld.
Interesting.
And carpentry.
What is the best compliment someone can give you?
That I'm creative.
And what is a cause you are passionate about?
One recently that I'm really passionate about is creating equal pay for women and men. I think seeing more diversity in leadership is something, just because I feel like I need that. I need to see more people who have done what I've done and been able to scale it beyond what I've done. And seeing somebody that looks like me and that is a woman, I think it's been hard to find those people. So I'd like to see that, especially for younger. I have a little daughter. I want to see my daughter be able to have leaders that look and think in that same way.
I like it. One thing on your bucket list?
Can I go back to I want to learn to weld?
Nope.
Oh, okay. So we bought an Airstream that we're going to renovate.
Ooh, cool.
And this next year, that's going to happen.
Very nice. I like it. All right, let's give her a hand, you guys. Thank you, Jenny. Much appreciated. All right, so we have time for a few questions, and we will try and repeat them so that they are caught on the video as well. So feel free to try and repeat them before you answer them.
Okay.
All right. Anyone with a question? You know, it's the funniest thing. This always happens. Like, everybody gets really shy for just a few minutes, and then it starts. Yes, Carlos.
what is the one thing that you believe that nobody else in the room or nobody else in the world believes?
That we will see equality in entrepreneurship before the end of my life. 50-50 entrepreneurship.
How?
We're just going to see more, we're going to support more women in entrepreneurship. We're going to see leaders who have gone through it and done it promote that and support other women in entrepreneurship.
That's a big question. All right.
That was hard.
That was hard. Well done. Anyone else? Yes.
Mine is twofold, specifically in regard to Cahoots. What keeps you up at night, and what makes you get up in the morning?
What keeps you up at night? What makes you get up in the morning?
My daughter has this pattern of waking up at like 2 o'clock in the morning and coming to my bed. But really, I think what keeps me up is I have a mind that keeps working, and I am a worrier, so a lot of things keep me up. But I think oftentimes about a lot of what ifs. What if all of a sudden, one day, everybody leaves Cahoots? Is that really going to happen? But I fear about that, right? And so that then the next day makes me wake up and be like, okay, did we remember to do this thing? Like, did we take care of every single person in our space? Did we listen to, and she's probably tired of me saying this, but did we listen to every new person that came through? You know, like, I've been through that scare of launching something and being like, this isn't gonna work, or maybe I should quit and just start and work for somebody, right? And every person that comes through that door probably has that fear and has had that fear at one point. And so, like, to be able to come in and make sure that every person on our team is thinking about that next person that comes through our door might be on the verge of thinking, this is make or break for me. So what can we do to make sure that, you know, the odds are set in their favor? So I worry about that. I don't know how to solve that except to continue worry and freak out my staff. But you know, we start planning, and we start making sure every single thing we do is focused on that support system. And then I worry about, like, God, is my daughter gonna grow up in a Trump world? Just kidding, I'm not gonna bring politics into this.
All right. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, I had a question about, I really admire that you brought your daughter here tonight, and we also have a 3-year-old, and would love to know what your advice is for entrepreneurs that have little ones and how you your boundaries.
How to juggle entrepreneurship and little ones.
Gosh, I really believe in integration. So she comes all the time into Cahoots. When she was young, she was here working beside me. And I think that actually helps propel this equality concept, right? Like, we've been, for such a long time, women have been known as the home caretaker, right? Like, we've always been at home, men have always been at work. The more we see women kind of integrated into the workforce, the more we see family integrated in the workforce, is when we start seeing this conversation of paternal leave and maternal leave in the country, right? Like, so these little things that seem so little that just help us personally are actually moving this entire conversation forward. In terms of how do you balance it all, I have an incredible partner. My husband is amazing. But also that we just have a lot of great friends and support in this community. It's not easy. I honestly admire a lot of the parent entrepreneurs that we have here, because I look at them, and there was an article out that said parent entrepreneurs are more efficient than non-parents, and I don't believe that because I feel like I'm failing all the time. But I do think that you learn your priorities and you learn to say no a lot better when you have kids, because there's a priority system, right? Like, I know that I want to spend time with my child, and I've set Saturday and Sunday as those days. And it's, as a parent, it's not so much about the amount of time you spend, it's the quality of time that you spend. And so I make sure that in those short periods that I have with her, that they're really quality pieces of time. We go to the park, And there are days when I do need to work, right? So then we go over to the teapot downtown, and she gets to run and play in the park while I shoot off a couple emails while I'm there. But I think we have to push the boundaries of what is expected. It's okay, I think, as long as, like, Ada's kind of crazy, my daughter's kind of crazy. She'll run around and she'll cry, but, you know, ask anyone here and they'll carry her, they'll hug her, they'll play with her for the few periods that she's here. Integration.
Good. Linda?
You say that you're always helping entrepreneurs solve their problems here. That's one of your big value adds. So there must be some common problems that bubble up. So what are the most ones that you hear the most?
The feast and famine one is often, where do I find my next project? How does that work? And then the common answer is, how do you build a sustainable model? And it's a challenge at every stage. You know, even the service-based businesses that are, you know, 10 employees and have good work coming in, it's how do you create that evergreen fund? Like, how do you make this sustainable beyond just your generation, and how do you make it sustainable beyond the next year? And I can't say that I have the secret answer to that, but you do see a lot of innovation happening in that way. That's where you see, you know, service or product-based businesses launching. You see a lot of, like, even if you look at WebPT, right? They were a service-based business before, and now they've turned software. And, you know, like, there are different ways to create that, and I think we can be really innovative with that. But I think that's the most common problem, is how do I monetize this in a way that it's scalable, and I'm not just chasing that next dollar every single day. Again, I don't have the answer to that, but there's a lot of brilliant people that have done it. I think you talk to any of our sponsors and they probably have clients that have gone through that too.
The fun of owning a business.
Yeah.
One more question? Anybody? Yes.
What do you think startup owners should do to gain more confidence in their dream?
How to gain more confidence in your dream?
I think fail more actually helps a lot. Realizing that, like I said, that this is a big story and your story doesn't end here. I think we constantly get fearful of, this is the thing that's gonna break me. And that's where you get that lack of confidence. But when you overcome it and you realize, holy crap, I'm sitting in a building that I just bought and the whole freaking community came forward and did this. It's like, I can do anything. And so that's really helpful. Is just you have to come across those hurdles to be able to build that confidence. In order for you to come across those hurdles, is you have to put yourself out there. You have to take those risks. I would also say, though, that you have to evaluate where you are in your life, because there are risks that are incredibly expensive for you. Depending on, we were very fortunate that we paid off all of our bills, you know, like we don't have a huge amount of debt, that we're able to take a lot of these risks, you know. And in my head, I'm very logical. I'm very, like I said, I think one of my skill sets is strategy. So when I think about, am I gonna do this or not, it comes with probably 5 pages of, okay, if this doesn't happen, what happens now? Then what happens? Then what happens? Then what happens? And so I'm not really surprised if this doesn't happen. Then I have 500 other options to choose from there.
So would you say that's like making sure that you're trying to take a smart risk?
Yeah,
Okay.
taking a smart risk, and then just being mentally prepared for if that doesn't happen,
Right, okay.
what do you do next?
Right.
And at the end of the day, you can always go get a job.
Very true.
We're all talented, smart people,
Right.
so why not try?
It's true. Thank you, Jenny.
You're welcome.
All right, very good.